From the heart of Central Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your neighbor, your host, David Gornoski. So happy to be with you for our 5 o'clock hour of the show, where we're going to dissect the news like nobody else in the world is going to do for you today. Because that's what this program's about. It's about challenging groupthink. It's about challenging the toxic blame game that is politics and empowering each and every one of us with the truth, with the ability to discern fake news and myth from the truth, with the ability to equip us with the power to overcome the bystander effect that hypnotizes so much of us into apathy and complacency and going along to get along. We're not going to do that on this program. We're a program that cultivates personhood, not collectivism. And I have a question that I want people to think about on this segment of the program. I want people to think about what their real passion is. What is their real faith all about? Who do they really put their faith in when the going gets tough, when things are different, when things are challenging, when fear can slip in? We have to come to the point of really taking captive every thought that we have, being mindful of the way we process things that scare us, things that are unknown. You've heard the saying, the fear of the unknown. And that's a little bit of a overused saying, but it's true. The fear of the unknown makes us give up our birthright for a little bowl of sloppy porridge. Sloppy porridge with nasty, stale brown sugar on it. We don't want that. We give away our birthright, our inheritance of our freedom, because of the stupor that we get into when we allow fear to rob us of our faculties. So my question is, why is faith in the state so hard to shake? Faith. What is the word faith? What does that mean? That means, well, the Greek for that word is pistis. Pistis. P-I-S-T-I-S. Pistis. It means trust, fealty to. It means faith. Who do you trust? Who do you abide by? I would say that so often, unfortunately, in our land of the free, many of us have turned to the false idols of our mind that the state fosters. The state has a tendency to do things which are in its own best interests. And I'm going to unpack what those interests are in a very clear and memorable way. First, you have the level of the state that most of us experience. And when I say state, I mean government, right? So we're not just talking about the state at the state level, like Florida. We're talking about the federal, the local, the city, and all that. The first part of the state, and by the way, it is not some kind of enemy or some kind of entity outside of us. It's a reflection of who we are as a culture. So what I'm talking about here is the culture that allows these things to prosper and do what they do and get things wrong. But the first question is, why do we have faith in the state? And why is it that faith, that trust, that adherence, that devotion to the state, why is it so hard to shake for seemingly millions of people in our society? America's reputation to the world is one of being rather free-spirited, free will oriented. We are seen by European countries as maverick, free market radicals, right? But yet when you come here, then you realize, wait a second, I'm looking around and a lot of my neighbors are ratting out people who are playing frisbee in the park, or sitting on a beach alone with nobody around, on a beach that was not made by government, that existed way before those governments were even a speck in their founders' eyes. And we just sit around and say, well, whatever, right? So why do we have such faith in the state? Well, what are the motivations of people that work in government? You have basically two things. You have one, politicians. That's the layer that we're most familiar with. Politicians, their whole thing is all about, look, and it's not them, okay? It's any of us that would be in that situation. So let's have some empathy. As much as we dislike so much of things that happen, let's try to be rational as we unpack and analyze this. The politician's mindset, they get elected, right? So what's the kind of person that wants to win popularity contests? Those people are the ones who are the dreamers in some sense. They want to go down in history as legends, as icons, as movers and shakers. Or sometimes they just want to be able to help their friends in a particular field of industries that they feel can be advanced, and that they can get a lot of social status power by helping their friends have a seat at the trough through their power, through their political office. But regardless of that, whether it's just more of a practical, reciprocal notion that drives a politician to run for a popularity contest and win, meaning they went through the gauntlet of special interests and they won, who's that's going to screen out? Who's that going to bias towards? If they make it through, the number one thing that they're worried about is optics or perception. The number one thing motivating all politicians, left or right, is the fear of being perceived as doing something which causes the destruction of jobs. That's the normal time, biggest priority usually, or deaths in terms of a war that is unwinnable or disaster, or a terrorist attack, or a natural disaster like a hurricane, or in this latest situation, a pandemic. They have to, number one priority, no matter who they are, is concern themselves with, how do I mitigate the perception that I am to blame for these bad things happening? Interesting. So if that's the case, then the heart of politics is a blame game. Let me repeat. The heart of politics. Politics itself is a blame game. So we talk about blame game in politics, but we act like that's some kind of like side feature. No, that is the heart of politics. It's like a blame game hot potato. Who's going to get stuck with the blame when this whole thing sorts itself out through the battle of media and talking points and random dumb luck and coalition building and PR and money fundraising and all that stuff? Who's going to get the blame and who's going to get the glory of things that neither of them really did little to do? So politicians, in some sense, often act as basically PR spokespeople for the status quo of the way things are run, the way things are done. And they carve out their little constituent groups. They carve out their little special interest coalitions. They work the money process so they can win elections. And their main priority is the mitigation of perceived risk for themselves. So, faced with the choice of doing something which will make them completely, brutally unpopular, to the point where they will most certainly be routed out of office in the short term, but in the long term will save lives and make the country more free and more prosperous, the politician, even if they think they're looking at long-term interests, are always going to be biased towards short-term gain with not a lot of attention to long-term fallout. So that's why there's such a proclivity to have extensive forced lockdowns, right? Because if anybody opens it and somebody has an outbreak, which would happen whether you have it open or shut, most likely, but if there's an outbreak, the media will whip it up into hysteria, and they have a bias, and that media narrative will set in place that this politician caused these people to die. They won't talk about the faulty nutritional science causing people to die. They won't talk about the bureaucratically administered quackery of nutrition and subsidies to big sugar and big corn and big wheat, and how that causes insulin resistance, which causes the fatality rate for viruses to be higher than normal. They won't talk about that. They'll look at the hot potato. Who's got the hot potato? Oh, the politician presiding over opening up. Therefore, they get the blame. That's how you know politics is a blame game. We'll continue to unpack this in just a moment. We'll analyze how bureaucracies work in this mix. We've looked at politicians. Now we're going to look at the motivation of bureaucracies. You won't get this anywhere else. This is a neighbor's choice. The truth. Let's get to work.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania & Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania & Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Attorney spokeswoman.
Man, how can you afford gas for that big SUV?
I pay less for gas than everyone else. I got the free Get Upside Gas app and get up to 25 cents a gallon cash back every time I buy gas.
Hold on. You're getting up to 25 cents off a gallon with the free Get Upside Gas app while I'm paying full price?
You know it. People earned over $1 million last year. You just got to take a picture of your gas receipt and bam, up to 25 cents a gallon cash back.
You don't have to tell me twice. I'm downloading the free Get Upside Gas app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code TRUCK for a 20-cent a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 45 cents a gallon on your next tank. Just download the free Get Upside app at the App Store or Google Play and use promo code TRUCK. Save money on gas on every fill-up. Download the free Get Upside app and use promo code TRUCK. That's TRUCK.
Looking to enhance your workout at home social distancing? There's no better way to do that than with a post-workout supplement from Fortify. It's the new all-in-one pre- and post-workout supplement. It's completely all-natural. There are no artificial flavors or sweeteners. Fortify Fit is the first of its type in the U.S. Fortify Fit combines all 10 of the latest sports nutrition ingredients in one canister. Build muscle, strength, endurance with Fortify Fit. Plus, it'll kickstart your immune system quickly, safely. Right now, you receive 25% off by using the code RADIO. Use the code RADIO to receive the 25% off discount. Fortify Fit, created and designed by board-certified Dr. Michael Lang. You know him as the radio host of Ask the Doctor. Get Fortify Fit with 2 delicious flavors, strawberry watermelon and fruit punch. Amazing results when using pre- and post-workouts. Fortify Fit. Available at fortify.com. That's FORTIFEYE.com. Remember the EYE in Fortify. Dr. Michael Lang's Fortify Fit with 2 delicious flavors, keeping America fit and healthy during this time of precautionary change.
Hello, this is David Gornoski. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. Thanks for making the choice to spend this time unpacking the truth behind the headlines, behind the groupthink, the herd mentality, the hive mind that the TV party and the failing newspapers push. We're going to get to the truth because we are committed to a future of love and freedom and diversity and beauty and decentralization That's the key with diversity. You get to have decentralized power where power is not able to corrupt people as much when it's monopolized into the hands of a few who just don't know what they don't know. That's the nature of bureaucracies. They can be the most well-meaning people. You can have Gandhi and Mr. Rogers and everybody running a bureaucracy, but they won't know what they don't know, because if they're shielded by competitive pressure with government edict and regulations or mandates to be an agency like the FDA or CDC or different organizations like that, then they themselves are operating on a similar frame as politicians for sorting out their success, which is the mitigation of blame and the accumulation of credit for things they didn't really do. That's it. It's an optics game that drives bureaucracies and politicians. Now, with bureaucracies, they are a little bit different than politicians in the sense that they can be there, of course, for lifetimes, right? Politicians come and go, as we know with the swamp and so forth in D.C. The bureaucrats that run these agencies, they stay no matter who's in or out. They're just staying around. They've got their little clique. They've got their little nest egg. They've got their little lucrative pension, and they're having a good time. So for those folks, what is the self-interest motive? Well, they have a profit motive. Now, your government education will tell you that private or voluntary, businesses, that's dirty profit stuff. But government is just service. It's public. There's no profit. It's just service, right? That's what they tell you. Well, they have a profit motive, right? They get lucrative pensions with their job. They get lucrative job security. They get raises. They get a lot of money. They get a lot of time off. They get cush situations where everybody else can be destroyed by government policies and their jobs, but their job is pretty much one of the most sacred, preserved spot. They don't have to worry about their budgets being cut because politicians don't want to look bad to say, look, I fired this whole department. That's bad optics. Remember, no matter who you elect, a politician is naturally, anybody is going to be motivated by optics. Even the most diehard person who wants to do the right thing and cleanse the economy of wasteful spending, when they see the headline, 10,000 people from federal agencies out of work because this person, this president, or this person cut the wasteful spending, that is going to be reverberated by the media, which left or right tends to love the status quo, tends to love the worship and accumulation of state power no matter what. The media acts as a proselytizing force. They have a faith in governments, in centralized governments, taking care of us from cradle to grave by the use of their force and coercion in effective ways that they see fit. They have a deep and abiding faith that passes all understanding. And that media sycophantically acts as a proselytizing force for the maintenance and accumulation of more power for those bureaucracies. So bureaucracies are motivated by the profit motive of wanting to get bigger budgets and more power to expand their little fiefdom, their little kingdom of genius expertise on managing the lives of whatever it is, whether it's the environment. They have a war on pollution. Meanwhile, pollution isn't really getting away. They have a war on cancer. 1960s, Nixon declared war on cancer. What do we get from that? We have a war on poverty. We get more poverty. We have a war on literacy. Where's the literacy rate? Is it that much better since we started that? We have a war on terrorism. And what do? We're arming Al-Qaeda or whatever in the Middle East against Syria and so forth. That's what you get. It's kind of sad, right? It's kind of pitiful. But that is what you get when you have faith as the operative agency driving people's dependency on government to solve problems. The media is the greatest proselytizers of this faith. They love the accumulation of bureaucratic power. And so what happens is the bureaucrats and the politicians, they pick the wrong theory over and over again in whatever field it is. They pick a theory which their groupthink tunnel vision is going to always lead them towards. Think about it. In the world of economics, you have some economists that would tell you if governments create money out of thin air through a Federal Reserve and Treasury buyback schemes and so forth, that actually debases the purchasing power of an economy. It actually destroys and distorts prices. It actually destroys savings. It actually destroys wisdom about where the best places are to invest. It actually calcifies bad actors like airline companies that need to be, go to bankruptcy or purchased by more effective workers and business owners in the economy who could do things better than they and save a little better and provide a better service. So these governments, these bureaucracies and politicians, they always pick theories that always end up giving them more power. So I'll give you an example. Economics. There are economists who say you can't create money, you can't print money to have wealth. Do those economists have power in Washington? No. That's a valid theory, but why is it that they're not allowed to have a seat at the table? Because their theory by nature negates the existence of the apparatus of these bureaucracies. So if you had monetary economists who were saying you don't need the Federal Reserve to have a monopoly on interest rates, and you don't need to spend money you don't need to create money out of thin air to game the economy with consumption, that's not going to be a sustainable long-term path of prosperity. If that's the case, what's going to happen? The experts who negate the need for government bureaucracies to run things, they're never going to have a seat at the table. And the same goes for nutrition. The food pyramid, right? The USDA and all the health subsidies to big wheat and big sugar, big corn. These are things that were propped up and became massively big because of massive billion-dollar handouts to these groups for decade after decade after decade. So why is it that there are experts who have better science and better, more rigorous data to back up their claims, saying don't eat the big grains, don't eat the big sugar, big corn, don't listen to the quackery behind the pseudoscience of the food pyramid? No one's allowed to listen to that because, again, those experts' rigorous science negates the need for governments to pick and choose who to listen to in the first place, right? Because if you're eating healthy, if you're eating in a ketogenic state, that means a lot of the big multinational corporations that staff the universities and staff the government agencies that make the health picking winners and losers, the big sugars, the big corns, the big wheats, they'd be out of a job. So they're bureaucratically captured by the interests that they're supposed to be a fair referee for, at least on paper. So we've looked at economics. You're not going to get a fair hearing of economic experts negating state power. You're not going to hear them in the state, in governments. And you're also not going to hear nutritional advice that says, hey, all these things you've subsidized, all these things that you've rigged the market to make them super cheap, those things are making us sick. They're not helping us. They're actually causing insulin resistance, which is this key issue, along with inflammation, which is linked to this continual rise in heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, and the weakened immune systems that are not able to deal with new viruses. So there's not an expert class when you go to government. It's a political class. Even if governments mean well, all the experts that are inculcated around their thrones are all experts that by their nature legitimize the fact that they have so much power. The fact that their friends are heavily subsidized by your money, your hard-earned money that you work for, without a choice to opt out. So by their nature, there is a bias. There is a conflict of interest when we turn to governments, as well-meaning as they can be, to learn what we should do about the economy, what we should do about nutrition, and then what we should do about a pandemic like we're in right now. There are a lot of experts who would say, these are very, very valid experts who say, you know what? Having a forced shutdown is actually might be cause more fatalities for this virus because it's going to weaken the ability for the herd immunity to catch in fast enough. So it's going to create more waves of deadly virus. Well, those experts are not heard. Why? Because their recommendations don't need state intervention. And so when your job is to intervene as a government, the only people that you're going to hear the most from are those who validate your narrative, who validate the one little hammer move that you have, which is to throw money at things and to use force. It's such a troglodyte, outdated way of doing things. It doesn't have to be emotional. It's just facts. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. More in just a moment.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania and Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania and Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Non-attorney spokeswoman. If you know anything about NFL or about NCAA basketball or football or NHL or whatever, entertainment television, make sure you make a deposit at betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Again, make a deposit. They've been getting a lot of great response from the Bubba Army. Make your deposit using promo code Bubba100. It's simple. Go to betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Sign up with the Bubba100 code and make that deposit and get your bonus, plus have some fun at the safest wagering site available. Fast, on-time paying their winnings out, incredibly mobile-friendly. And if you haven't already signed up, then go now. Make your deposit at betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Bubba100 gets you a special bonus and gets you in the game. Again, www.betdsi.com, and at the promo code portion,
Bubba100.
Bubba100. Thank you.
Why is faith in the state so hard to shake? That's what I'm exploring in this hour. Because you see it everywhere. We have this magnetic pull to say, well, I'm usually a constitutionalist, or I'm usually a hands-off my life guy or girl, but now I'm scared. Now this is a big thing. This is different. Let's all just throw it out the window. I'm scared, right? It's a natural, perfectly normal temptation to fall into. But it doesn't mean we should stay there. We should pull out of that, right? Especially as new things come to light and we realize that things like the originally proposed fatality rate, now with data, now we know the denominator of how many people have it and how many people are having fatalities with it, that number is a lot smaller than they originally proposed. And it's smaller than even some of these touted models, like the Ferguson model, even suggested would happen if you had, lockdown measures in place or moderate, government policies in place and so forth. So what happens when governments fail? What happens when politicians and bureaucracies fail? Well, politicians act as a kind of shield to getting the real root of the problem corrected. So politicians are like renters of power. They get a small time at the trough. They're renters of the assets that they're managing. They don't get to have long-term control of the properties and procedures of government and its assets. So they get a small window, and they think along that short-term window horizon. What can I do to maximize the perception that what I'm doing is working and wonderful and salvific? And how can I mitigate the blame when people lose their jobs or lose their life or what have you? Well, that's how politicians serve. They serve as a misdirection for our ire, our irritation, and our anger, and also our hope. If government, which we are seeing now, their lockdown measures are worse than the disease, because again, they don't even tell you in their heavy-handed practices that their government subsidized nutrition schemes are the things leading people to insulin resistance the most, which is the number one comorbidity factor behind people who have terrible bouts with this new virus. They don't tell you that. I think that's totally negligent. At the very least, it's disgustingly negligent. And it discredits them completely. Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine," and they just spit all over that idea. But here's what happens. Once the public starts to slowly wake up from the stupor and the gaslighting of the media that always proselytizes their faith in the state and its bureaucracies, what do? They get directed into scapegoating a politician like Trump or whoever it is, and there's that blame game. There's that hot potato. Who gets caught with the potato in their hands when the public crowd turns against the procedures of the state? Who gets the blame? It's the politician. They get voted out, or in recent times are all about investigating and trying to find criminal things. That's the level of shrillness that we've got to now. But they get voted out. They get purged like a scapegoat. Boom, you're gone. And now the winning team gets to say, well, our guys are going to come in and our girls are going to come in and fix all the problems of your awful, awful scapegoat. They don't know it's a scapegoat. In their minds, the voting crowd is whipped up into a fever to believe that that person is the problem. And they really believe it. To have a scapegoat is to not know you have one. That's what Rene Girard used to say. So you don't know. You really believe that the person that you're putting all of your focus and fixation on truly, truly is the worst of all worst people. And guess who thinks that way? Guess whose minds are so warped by that hatred? Lawyers and doctors and philosophers and scientists and nuclear engineers and pastors and librarians and cooks, plumbers. Every one of us can get tempted by that gravitational pull of hatred and fixation on personalities to scapegoat when the steady status quo of the state and its interventions fail once again. They go to a war, they whip people up into believing it. The war is exposed to be based on lies. It's a blunder. It costs treasure and lives. Who gets the blame? Whoever was in office as the war was still going on. They rig the market economy with crony corporatism, not freedom. They lie and say it's freedom that causes downturns, but we know it's their rigged government intervention on behalf of their favored banks and favored industries and political reasons to try to get everybody into a home loan. And then it goes awry, and who gets the blame? Okay, it's whoever's in office. George W. Bush, you're the problem. Get him and his party out and bring in the saviors. They come in, they get the blame eventually, and then you get a cycle, rinse and repeat, right? So the bureaucracies that are always making these blunders, which is always just more and more failed pseudoscience policies that always favor handouts and always favors more and more bureaucratic power and bigger budgets. They never get touched because the bureaucracies are never fired. Again, no politician wants to be on the record saying I presided over firing 100,000 federal workers. They don't want that. We're so afraid of media optics. We're so afraid of sensitivities that government is so sacred. It's so sacred that to fire that many people and it doesn't mean fire, get them into jobs where their talents are more productive in the real world, in the voluntary world, the private sector of churches and nonprofits and organizations and associations and co-ops and startups. No one's saying that people who work in federal office are just bad people. There's wonderful, talented people, but the system itself is inevitably going to break itself and find faulty solutions because they don't know what they don't know. They don't have competitive pressures like you and I do that they have to actually deliver excellent products at a better price and a better service and a better quality, or else somebody else will replace them. They don't have that. They have a monopoly grant. And that privilege biases their ability to see what they're doing wrong and to correct it and to do the long-term things that will have everybody's interest in mind, not their particular budget in mind, not their particular department expansion in mind, not their particular pensions in mind. And so, when things go wrong, as they inevitably do, whether it's in the field of rigging the market and the economy, or rigging nutritional advice and science and subsidies to garbage, toxic, insulin resistance causing foods, or whether it's in the field of how best to manage a novel virus, the bureaucracy in its continual steady state of ruin doesn't get touched. The politicians get voted out. And when it comes to the execution of the law, when we feel that we have a wrong policy, like a war on drugs or something, what gets blamed in that case? It's the policemen who have to execute the law and things go awry on the camera or whatever it is, body camera, whatever. They get the blame, not the actual policy, not the actual laws, not the actual bureaucracies and the lobbyists and their crony friends in favored industries. They just keep going unscathed, and the politicians get purged and shamed, and the new heroes come in with all the hopes. And meanwhile, the country continues to divide itself, obsessed with tribalism, as opposed to finding solutions that actually work. We've become a country that's so obsessed with winning and beating the other team. We're so obsessed with beating our political adversaries that we don't actually want to solve problems. We don't want to know the truth that the food pyramid and its quackery-based nutrition science is wrong, and that it is deadly wrong for generations. It has harmed our family members. We are so focused on beating our rivals for power that we blame neighbors, and we're obsessed with scandalizing and disparaging our neighbors who have their own tribal little teams, that they don't even see so much can be done together. So many problems can be solved without even looking one iota at government and its bureaucracies, without fighting each other tooth and nail for one sliver of power, and blaming other people when that failing power always fails. There's so many things we could do. We have experts on this show that if you change your diet to a ketogenic diet, you can stave off Alzheimer's. Dr. Mary Newport showed that last week. We have experts like Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who is able to help stage 4 cancers as a biologist using ketogenic therapy, which is eating in a ketosis state And not just that, but other things with it. We have people showing that heart disease is not caused by the consumption of animal fats. It's actually caused by the consumption of carbohydrates and massive amounts of it, like our society continues to be misled in doing. Do you see how those big three things I just mentioned, Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, those big three things, throw in diabetes, all can be dealt with not by tearing each other apart, not by firing or hiring politicians, but by changing what we do right now in our lives, and then telling our neighbors the truth as we bear witness to the changes it does for us in our personal lives. That's what this is all about, folks. I'm David Gornoski. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. When we come back, we'll continue to digest and unpack why the faith in the state persists.
The folks at Black Rock Bar and Grill are fortunate enough to be able to help people in need, and that's what they're doing now with Hope on Wheels. In these times of uncertainty, we all need to come together. So from 11 to 2 and from 5 to 7, you can drive through their two locations, the one in Carrollwood, Black Rock Bar and Grill at 11702 Northdale Mabry, and the one in Brandon at 804 Providence Road, and you can get a free meal. They'll be serving chicken sandwiches, peanut butter sandwich, or a burger and chips to anyone in need. Children, healthcare providers, first responders, anyone in need, please come through. And when it's all over, your neighbors here at the Black Rock Bar and Grill will be ready to serve you the best steak dinner you've ever had. Served on our unique 755-degree hot stone, every bite sizzling hot and better than the last. An award-winning steakhouse featuring 100% pure Angus beef served on that unique hot lava rock with tons of casino butter. It's amazing. Black Rock Bar and Grill. We're going to get through this together.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location?
In the woods, just outside of town.
Oh, not surprising. You've got your home. Bears have theirs.
Yeah, but see, this wasn't just any bear. This bear was wearing jeans and a hat, as in a Smokey Bear.
Jeans and a hat. That's definitely Smokey. What exactly did he have to say?
Well, we were about to head home, after having a bonfire.
Oh, I can guess where this is going.
Right. See, Smokey told me the fire wasn't actually out. He said if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
That's true. Did you know that 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans? That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Wow, no kidding?
I'm a forest ranger. We never kid.
Sorry.
that was a joke.
Oh.
Get your Smokey on. If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference, because 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hi, I'm Randy Jackson. When I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I also learned about its serious connection with cardiovascular disease. I knew I needed to make some major lifestyle changes that would help me manage my type 2 diabetes. I am working with the American Heart Association to lead an educational campaign called The Heart of Diabetes and share tips that have helped me stay in the know and guide me toward a healthier way of living. Keep active, normalize critical health numbers, opt for a healthy lifestyle, and work with a healthcare provider.
I test my blood sugar every day, and I plan my meals and activities accordingly.
I visit my healthcare provider. He helps me stay motivated.
I take a brisk walk every morning and make healthy food choices.
I'm Dr. Dan Jones. These people are living proof that type 2 diabetes can be successfully managed. Please visit your own healthcare provider, and for more information, visit iknowdiabetes.org.
So there's this sacred aura that surrounds government and surrounds the little bureaucracies and the little intelligentsia experts that come around and entrench themselves into our lives and meddle into our lives. Have harmed us in more ways than they can possibly realize, but forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing. Politicians are renters of this power, and their only concern is to mitigate bad optics. They don't want to be blamed for the bad things like death and economic suffering that government creates inevitably. Every time it intervenes, every time it creates a new law or creates a new policy that forces and picks and chooses who can survive and who will be criminalized for every nonviolent idea you can imagine. And what happens? Human beings, we get transfixed by this. We get mesmerized by this aura of this ability to have power of life and death over us. Whichever our political philosophy is or our political party, we get this kind of mixture of bystander effect when we see a man getting arrested at the beach. Well, we say, well, what could I possibly do? You know, he should have followed the rules. And that's right? You should follow the rules. But why are you allowing those rules to be made in your name in the first place? You don't get to just say there's a far-off dictator running this country. The crowd, the people, we're the ones who allow these things to be done in our name. And we get sucked into a vortex of fear that makes us make mistakes. But then when we know better, when the data comes out that shows that forcing lockdowns on people for months is not a recipe for success, but a recipe for more fatalities and sickness, and a recipe for economic destruction, the likes of which the fools running the system don't even have a comprehension to deal with. What do we do then? We have this bystander effect that what can I do as someone is arrested? What a fool, he should have just known better. But what you can do is to withdraw your consent to the type of laws and carelessness, the lawless laws that are being done on your behalf. And then there's another side of folks that has a kind of catharsis. You know that feeling when you feel like the bad guys get destroyed at the end of the movie and you feel good. Oh yeah, the bad guys were destroyed. The villains were defeated. You feel good, right? And there's a lot of folks that feel that little fleeting feeling of peace and catharsis, that satisfaction of seeing a fellow neighbor arrested at the beach or playing at the park or playing at a playground. So there's this bystander effect of knowing what you're seeing is wrong and ugly, but just feeling totally helpless to do anything to speak out about it. And it's mixed with a little tinge of scapegoat pleasure. That person got to have their liberty. I didn't get to have that liberty, so good for them to get punished. Makes me feel better about myself. There's a lot of folks, unfortunately, that give in to that temptation as well. We all have that temptation. But, this is all magical thinking. Because in order to enforce these arbitrarily lawless rules, you have to break the rules. In order to force social distancing rules, you have to send people to go break social distancing to arrest people from deserted beaches and deserted parks. And to break up families who are not being around other people until those people by the state have to go risk their lives and risk those other people's lives to force a lawless law. And we have no right to blame the politicians and blame police for executing the laws that we ourselves are the ones who give our tacit consent to when we don't speak up, when we don't use our right on a jury to nullify these bad laws as the founders demanded us to do to preserve the means of liberty that are ours and that our God has given us. So in order to enforce these lawless rules, they end up becoming lawless rule breakers themselves. Governments steal, we cannot. Governments can kill a guy sleeping in his bedroom like Duncan Limp, we cannot. They can introduce crack cocaine with Freeway Ricky Ross into impoverished communities in Los Angeles, a documented fact. We cannot. We go to prison for life. They can put people in cages where rape is rampant and get lucrative pensions while they do it. We cannot. They can create money out of thin air and debase our purchasing power. That means they counterfeit money because they're diluting the purchasing power of your dollars, and they can hand those dollars that they've created for some grandiose ideas and for some grandiose interests of their friends. We cannot. They can steal. We cannot. They can defraud people by acting like they're a third-party agency that's designed to ensure the quality and efficacy of drugs, like the Food and Drug Administration, and then collude with groups like Purdue Pharma, who end up making false claims about the non-addictiveness of oxycodone and getting FDA cronies to rubber stamp it through and put inserts into the drug showing and saying that these things are not addictive. If a free market group did that, if you and I did it in a nonprofit, honest business, that would be criminal. That would be a criminal collusion with the people we were supposed to be keeping a watchdog eye on. That would be considered fraud. That would be defrauding people. They don't get anything happening to them. And it's not they, it's us, because we're the ones that allow this stupid mythology to continue in our name. We're the ones that act like people can break rules which we know are wrong to break, but if they do it in some little ritual we call government bureaucracy, somehow it magically becomes okay. Somehow, if people steal and debase money and assault and send people into harm's way and force people's businesses to be closed, somehow, if we just silently give that power away, it magically won't cause destruction on a mass scale. Look, stealing is wrong, and it creates a destruction on a personal scale. Killing is wrong, and if you do it personally, it creates a massive destruction on a personal scale. And when you transpose those rights and those evils, they're not rights, if you transpose those evil things to a ritual called government, into a bureaucracy, it's only going to be worse. It's only going to create more chaos, more rule breaking, and more lawless attitudes from the culture that put those things into place to begin with. So a lawless government will create a lawless culture in its mirror image. Because ultimately, all governance is rooted in the crowd. Why can't we have governance and law that always says it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to defraud, it's wrong to pollute other people's places, to counterfeit, to assault, to destroy others' freedoms? It's wrong no matter who does it, no matter what badge, no matter what little outfit they wear, and what their little credentials are. It's always wrong for everyone. That would be an honest governance, wouldn't it? That'd be a beautiful governance. But it's up to us to be that governance. We will get the government that we want to have. It's up to us, this crowd of people gathered together, to desire mercy, not sacrifice, to desire consent, not imposition, to love our neighbors as ourselves. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.